Is that an alphabetical ask? Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here, and thank you, Deshaun, for inviting me so that I could share what is happening in the workforce space for our young adults that are in the foster care system. I am with Workforce Connections, and I am the contract administrator for the youth programs. So I oversee the funding that goes towards our youth, which is the 16 to 24 age group. But I also have the ability to work across the age groups to the adult world. So I'm so happy to be here and great to meet everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Cameron.
Hi guys, I'm Cameron. I'm one of the foster youth that's going to be representing today. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, thank you, Cameron. I am going to bounce it up to Ms. Valerie.
Good afternoon. My name is Valerie Hicks, and I am the Executive Director of SAFI, which stands for Specialized Alternatives for Families and Youth. We are a treatment foster care agency here in Nevada, providing foster care to those youth who have some mental health challenges and need more support in their child welfare care. And I'm so happy to be here because my youth, more than everyone else, needs the services that we're talking about today.
Thank you for joining us. And then last but definitely not least, Ms. Karen.
Hello, my name is Karen Perez. I was previously a foster care child, and I'll be representing the foster care kids.
Thanks for joining. So thank you, panelists, for jumping on. So what I want to do is allow this to be pretty much a discussion, a panel, and for them to kind of discuss some of the benefits and uses of youth transitioning out of the system. So CAA recently launched in January a Foster Youth Workforce Transition Initiative. This initiative focuses on bringing together community resources, leveraging federal dollars to see how we can employ foster youth and youth that have been in the foster care system. And so we've partnered with some great community partners, some of which we have joining us today. But this partnership is really about looking at, one, it's about developing that village approach that we talked about earlier. One of the things that we want to eliminate is youth being bounced around from place to place and different services being bounced around. We lose youth, we lose adults when we do that process. And so we want to try to see how we can eliminate parts of that. And so with that, we've developed this village approach where we have brought together these different community partners to see how we can collectively work to address the various needs of youth as they transition out of the system, whether that's workforce, whether that's an educational component, whether that's housing insecurities, food insecurities. So trying to see how we can overall wrap these youth and young people around services, specifically as they do transition out. As we know, as youth transition out of the foster care system, they lack resources, they lack job readiness skills, they lack the very skills that many of us, that have not entered the foster care system get over time. As we know, foster youth oftentimes, especially in Nevada, we do not have extended foster care yet. So at the age of 18, because we don't have extended foster care yet, a youth can opt to stay in a little bit longer through AB 350, but that's it. So there is no formal extension of foster care to the age of 21. So at age 18, the youth may not have any supports. And so looking at how we can support youth as they transition out. So with that being said, I'm going to start off by asking some questions to some of the panelists. Feel free to drop some questions along the way, but we'll definitely make sure that we get to that portion at the end. Ms. Letta, I'm going to turn it over to you first. Could you tell us about your program and the benefits of including the importance of workforce connections and including youth, specifically youth that are transitioning out of the system into those programs?
So Deshaun, thank you for that question. I want to share, first of all, the very last component that you spoke of, aging kids out of foster care or young adults out of the foster care system. let me share my story, because I think it's going to be very important to what we're talking about in terms of supporting young adults. I came to the United States when I was almost 20 years old. But fortunately for me, I had an executive director and a support system that encompassed career guidance, following up on anything and everything at all that I ran into as a young adult that was in a foreign country without any family. And so just hearing that really brought me back to that space, that if I did not have anyone, if I had been told, you are going to the United States and you're going to have to figure it out on your own, I don't think that I would be here speaking to you guys today, not with the success that I got. What changed, what was different, was that I had the support system. And so I want you to understand how deeply committed I am to this demographics, because I always bring myself back to that spot where, what if I had to figure it out on my own? And so as a workforce system, one of the mandates we have is to prioritize on serving the foster youth demographics. And I don't know that we have spoken it with as much clarity as I am trying to do right now. So we provide supportive services. However, I don't believe we've done a good job of partnering with each of you that are in this space right now that work with the young adults. Thank you, Deshaun. Thank you, Ms. Valerie, whom I've been working with for the past couple of weeks, for us to really come together and make sure that what Deshaun described, sending you from program to program, does not occur. That we come to you with the resources. I am coming to you with the workforce resources that we have. And so that being said, I am speaking to you a day before our first information session for an initiative that we have that is called Nevada Youth First. This is mimicked around our effort of putting our foster young adults first. This is an initiative that is going to train up any foster young adult that has an interest in childcare. We are going to bring you in, train you so that you can get those credentials that are necessary for you to gain the necessary training to become a childcare provider. And in my heart, I know that your experiences are the most important experiences for this work, because you have lived experiences. You were a child. And so what you bring to the table in terms of care is going to be very crucial and very important for this initiative. And it makes a lot of sense that you would be the ones that we reach out to solve the forever shortage that we've had in our community of childcare services. And many of you know that over the past 12 months that we've been in this pandemic, many mothers have been at home, unable to send their children to daycare. And we are soon going to be open. And that problem, sadly, is still around us. And so this initiative that we are going to be sharing tomorrow, the timing is perfect. We would like, if you can, share this information with some that are in your networks. And I am going to put up Nevada Youth First link in the chat for you guys to go to that website and register for the information session tomorrow. And it is going to be at 3 p.m. and it's going to be a virtual platform. Beyond that, if the interest is not childcare, we have a Facebook initiative that we're supporting for those that might want to learn digital marketing skills. Again, our priority group is youth that are in the foster care system. We also have several initiatives that are going on, but the two that I'm mentioning right now are what we have to start very soon. I believe the childcare is going to be April 1 is our target time frame to start the programming. The Facebook is about the same time frame, but the signing up and the registration are ongoing right now. And if anyone has an interest, we can send you over to our WIOA Title I providers, which is Help of Southern Nevada and ECRIS. And Deshaun, you are already connected with those individuals, but I would be happy to share, to connect anyone that has an interest in the two initiatives that we have going on right now. So I will leave that information there for now and open up for any questions that anyone might have for me as far as this initiative.
I'm actually going to, because I think you brought up some great points, go to Karen, because I think one of the things that you brought up that I think is so important was the diversity in the different jobs that you provide. And I think that's also very interesting and important to point out. What I'd like for Karen to answer or speak to rather is the importance of how do these type of programs benefit youth as they transition out of the system? Why is it so important for youth to gain these different experiences?
So I feel that these services are important for youth because as we spoke before, the state and being a foster child is like, we don't have parents. We don't have someone to guide us. We don't have someone to teach us right from wrong, to teach us how to do things. We have foster parents who are there for us to take care of our everyday needs. But as far as aging out, once that occurs, we don't really have someone who can teach us how to schedule an appointment, how to get a job, how to fill out this. And it's important to have these resources in case we do need to reach out and in case we do need help with something. And just being able to know that there's a place where, just in case, oh, hey, I don't have a job or I don't have a place to stay, but these are the resources that I have. Just knowing that is very strong. Like, it gives us a sense of we can do it and we can succeed even though we didn't have that guidance growing up.
Thank you so much. And we'll definitely get back to that. Cameron, I have a question for you. Why is it so important for youth to have a voice?
This is a good question. Personally, if you don't have a voice, then nobody will ever hear you. And the problems occur throughout the foster care system that nobody acknowledges because no one speaks up about it. And so for kids that I've actually seen and heard that they've been in terrible homes, they've transitioned to like 12 homes in like 6 months because their homes weren't really fitting out for them. And they never spoke up about it and never made a change for it. So hearing their voices and whatnot, it makes an impactful voice on my part to try to help out these kids that don't want to have a voice and speak up. Because if they don't speak up, then their problems get bigger and bigger and bigger until eventually they go and I don't know, something abruptly or horrible might happen to them, or something good might happen to them.
Thank you. Absolutely. And I think, and we kind of addressed this earlier, really having the youth voice at the forefront, and using their voice to lead the change and really direct the path, I think is so important. Ms. Valerie, what do you believe is the most important issue that needs to be addressed to ensure young people are transitioning out of care to be successful?
They need access. They need access to information, and they need resources. And that is why I am so happy that when I met with Dr. Tyler back in the spring, and she asked me this question, she said, how are you doing and what's keeping you up at night? And what's keeping me up at night was the knowledge that children in foster care were aging out in the pandemic. And I knew that our youth were challenged before in connecting with jobs that were going to pay them a living wage. But with the pandemic, they had adults competing with them for those same jobs. They did not have a village. They did not have Uncle so-and-so or Aunt so-and-so who had a job someplace who was going to be able to share with them when there were opportunities at that facility. And so I have been struck by the need for access to service and people who really understand, because there are a lot of well-meaning people, but if you don't really understand what it feels like to be in foster care, then you may not extend that olive branch as far as it needs to go in order to really be a lifeline to someone. So here's an example. When our children are looking for jobs, we say to them, okay, go apply for the job. And the job then asks them for some simple, basic documents. They ask for things such as maybe a birth certificate, maybe a social security card. Those are things that every child who is fortunate enough to grow up in their family, their biological family, has access to. Yet for our children, that becomes a major barrier to them being able to secure employment. And so just working with the group that Deshaun and others have formulated that gives us a process, a mechanism by which we can get those documents, means that our children have the hope of access to the needed resources that they so desperately need. Our children don't have a backup plan. Most children, I'm a grandparent, my children had a backup plan. My grandchildren will have a backup plan. Because at 18, I know that most children are not ready for prime time. And by prime time, I mean able to handle all of the responsibilities that come part and parcel with being a quote unquote adult. And so I would really like to shift our thinking away from the term that we use for this population, independent living. I don't believe in such a thing as independent living. I don't think that I live independently. I live interdependently with a group of people that meet my emotional, physical needs. Our children need the same thing. And so that's what they need. They need resources, they need good information, and they need people who understand what it's like to be in foster care, who don't slam the door on them the first time that they're not able to meet that expectation. And so I am so glad that I had the opportunity to meet with Workforce Connection, Help of Southern Nevada, and you, Deshaun, for the work that you're doing on behalf of our youth, because this is the ticket that they need to survive. They needed it before. Now with this pandemic, they need it more than ever.
Thank you so much, Ms. Valerie. You actually bring me to, you actually highlighted, all of what you highlighted was great. There's two things you highlighted that I wanted to pull out. I'm actually going to turn this question over to Cameron. One of the things you talked about was when youth don't have access to their birth certificates or their social security, as we've been working through this with our group now, that hinders them from getting jobs, from going to school and all these different things. Cameron, I want you to speak on the issue of not having a license, or how that prevents, how not being able to be prepared to get a license prevents you and have stopped you from going to school or getting a job, and how that's made an impact.
Impactful in a major way, since I never was taught how to drive since I was 16, and that's why I was indoctrinated in the foster care system. I've always was told, here's a bus pass if you need to go to a location. There's a bus, and here's a bus pass. Well, in Las Vegas, the bus system's not that great, And so it takes about like a 2-hour trip just to go down to my school every morning. So I wake up at 5 o'clock every single day just to go to school and get my education. But then I would also have to go to work immediately after, because it takes another 2 hours to get from my school to my work. And then I get from work to home, it's not till 1 o'clock in the morning. So my travel time and commute time are like 4 to 6 hours every single day. And between work and school, I got no sleep because I'm traveling with the bus only. And if I had a vehicle of some sort or was taught how to drive earlier, I wouldn't be having this problem of not getting any sleep, not able to find any jobs closest to me, or just having an ease of access to going to the grocery store.
Thank you. I think it's so important. One of the things that I stress as we move forward with this is that foster youth and youth that are transitioning out of care aren't asking for special privileges or special treatment. What youth in care want is the same access that many of you had, and that many of those that have not experienced the foster care system or that may not have experienced life stresses have those opportunities to get a license, to have their birth certificate and social security cards on hand. These aren't a handout that foster youth are looking for. It's simply those basic rights, those basic needs. It wasn't until 2011 that foster youth had the same rights with the push of the Foster Care Bill of Rights, that they were given some similar rights, and now it's being revamped. So that goes to show you that it wasn't too long ago that youth in care have had access or started to get access to the very same things that many of you all have already had. Karen, what I wanted to ask you was, speaking of independent living, and we know that we have had some struggles with how independent living has been done, because there is this notion that the independent living program here does great work. And I'm not saying that it doesn't, but I think that there's a lot that needs to be done. What we've simply done with AB 350, and I love it with as much, and even as we look to extend foster care to the age of 21. But my fear is that we're pushing homelessness until the age of 21. If we do not provide youth that are transitioning out of the system with adequate services and skills that they need. And so by addressing those and looking at how we can redo the independent living system, what are some things in your thoughts on, for you, what would have made transitioning out of the system better? What were some of those classes, the independent living courses that you took, that you felt, what was your experience in general with the independent living program? And what could have made it better?
So my experience with the independent living program it was okay. I mean, when I was 17, I was told, you have to take one class, and after that, like, you choose whether they pay your rent for you or you get a check and you pay your own rent. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, that's fine. So I took one class, and in that class, I was hoping that they would teach me, like, how to take care of myself, how to do things. But it is essential to know how to fill out a W-2. I'm not saying that it's not, but I feel that that's really the only thing that I learned in that class, which was just, once you get a job, you fill this out and that's how you do your taxes. But I was not told how to do my taxes. I wasn't told how to schedule an appointment, which should be a part of the independent living process, because that's a part of being independent while you're living, is knowing how to take care of yourself, how to find resources, how to schedule an appointment, family, how can I say this, like health education, and knowing how to find that resource of, hey, can I call the backup card of my Medicaid and, get an appointment somewhere? And just knowing that you can do that. And a lot of kids don't. And I'm very thankful I was in West Care when I aged out. So they practically taught me, like, hey, look, you're 17, you need to know how to schedule an appointment. You need to know how to find this. You need to know how to do that. Like, just everything. And thanks to them, I knew. But then I thought about it, and it's like, there's kids who really don't have that help, who don't have a foster mom that's going to turn around and say, hey, look, schedule your own appointment because you're aging out soon. No, they just scheduled it for them. And as far as mental health services, I feel like before you turn 18, you're pushed to go to mental health services because they're like, you need it. You know, they know you're going through stuff. But then you turn 18 and not only do you have the weight of your past on your mind, but you also have the weight of the present, which is what's going on and finding an apartment and things of that sort. And I mean, as we all know, being an adult is hard enough, let alone going through the mental stages of things that happened to you in your past. That's even worse. And there's even adults now who did have everything growing up who still can't figure their own things out mentally. Another thing is that when I turned 18, Westcare told me that I could stay in the facility and just go to the women's section. And I didn't want that because I wasn't recovering. And I feel like that bed should go to someone who essentially really did need it. So I chose to go back with my family, which they lost custody of me. And obviously before I turned 18, I wasn't able to go with them. So for that month from July to August, mid-August, I had to stay with them until my apartment was ready. And I feel like there should be a resource for children to be able to have extended foster care, or at least have the option to stay until their apartment is ready so that they know that they're safe and they're secure until their apartment is ready or their living situation is figured out.
Thank you, Ken. You actually touched on my next thing, which was a stepping place for youth as they transition out. It's important that we address the workforce. It's important that we address education, but if they have nowhere to live, it's going to be, it serves no purpose. And the reality is as youth transition out of the system, they oftentimes are forced to go back to the exact places that the system took them from. And so developing a transition house where youth can stay temporarily until they're able to get on their feet. All she needed was a few months. But what we then do is we put them back into the cycle of abuse that we've taken them from. And so then we have to really examine, are our methods in doing what we're doing successful? And the reality is all too often, youth go right back to the same place that we've taken them from. And so I think it's important to kind of look at that as we kind of move forward. Is this is a lot. Foster youth need a lot of resources and they need a lot of help. And if we're expecting them to be adults, which we are at the age of 18, then we must provide them with adequate services and supports that they need to be successful in adulthood. Otherwise, what we're doing is we're creating a space for them in the homeless shelters and a space for them to enter into the jail system. That's all we're doing. Or, unfortunately, many of them have died. So we really have to examine what our true, authentic purpose is. Ms. Bridget has spoke earlier about being genuine and what you present on camera and how you present the youth. That's so important when we talk about how youth, as they transition out, and how authentic it is, or how necessary it is for us to be authentic in our work to the young people as they transition out, and explain to them and provide them with these opportunities. You cannot come to these meetings and say, we're providing you with these resources, and then you don't. Or say that we care about you, but every program that you set up shows otherwise. And so really creating this stepping stone. Ms. Letta.
Yes.
For you, what is the importance of community partners getting involved?
So, you know, as you were speaking, I actually was just saying to myself, we wait until a young adult is 17, getting on to 18 before we introduce them to the resources that they will need as a young adult. That is too late. And so the excitement that I have today to see each of you that work with these young adults, the charge for us is not when they're 17 and a half. Early on, they need to know, or rather whoever is has the care, needs to really connect with the service providers of everything else. That means if we are going to anticipate a need for a job, let's work on the young adult familiarizing themselves with who does job placements. Let's familiarize them with the resources sooner than later. And let's not tell them that they are ready. They need to tell us they are ready. And do we care if they are ready or not? So the resources that we have should not be added after the fact. I want our service providers to know about some of these young adults at 16. Then there can be conversations about a driver's license. Then there can be conversations about, hey, let's talk financial literacy. Let's talk anything that is in career exploration that you need. And it takes time, doesn't it? And we try to jam it into the last 5 months of their exit. And so resources are important, but they need to be mapped out. It's not a question or issue of resources, guys. We are not organized as a support system for these young adults. We're just not organized. And so we are not going to do that anymore. I think that as sad as the pandemic had us sitting in these places for the past year, I think we were forced to talk to one another, to plan for when we exit this space. We are not going to operate the same way that we did the past few years around these young adults. So resources are not, it's not the issue. It's the design. How do you introduce a young person to WIOA resources? Is it organized? Do you send them off to get it all by themselves? Or do you have WIOA come to the young adult so that they can work with them and share with them the resources that they have? And that's really what I'm looking for with our resources now. I would like for us to come to the young adults rather than them coming to our offices.
Absolutely. And that really is building that village approach. And that really is getting to the youth because they don't know. I know Clark County has started this Life Set program, which is hopefully it will be amazing. It has showed to be amazing in other states. So hopefully as that roll out, we'll have more youth that transition out successfully. But there's still much work to be done here in Nevada. And it really does start with all of us bringing together our resources and kind of seeing how we can work with these young people. I'm going to turn it over to Cameron. We talked about, and actually I'm going to open this up to everyone. We talked about having youth at the table and bringing youth at the table and the importance of it. I transitioned out of the foster care system in 2010. And I tell you, there is importance in that because I was at the table and I'm still at the table. And I think that's important because as we look, that demonstrates and that shows the power of you including youth and you adding young people to your tables early on, because they have the ability to go back and make an impact. Now they have the ability to go back and be that voice and be that change. And so as we look at ways to bring youth at the table, this is my thought, is if it involves the youth, they should be at the table from the very beginning. There shouldn't be a question of when to bring them on. It's a question of which youth, and also looking at not having the same youth. What I mean by that is we have this definition of what a successful foster youth looks like. And so we want them at every table. But the reality is not every foster youth will look glamorous. And not every foster youth will look very polished. And they will not speak adequately. Those are the folks that you need to have at the table. You need to have representation of every young person at your table, because that makes that the impact that makes. So my question is to the panelists in general is, as we've talked about the importance of having these young people at the table, from your perspective, why is that important? And for the young adults that are on the panel, do you believe your voice was heard? And if so, what about that was powerful to you? I'm going to start with Cameron.
I do have a statement because I did work with Denise Parker with UPI. I think it was 2018, 2017. I was working on the revision of Sibling Task Force Bill of Rights or something. And I went in there as a representative of just one of the youth who went on the board meetings every single month just to give my insight on how you should re-inform the Sibling Bill of Rights, or just some questions they would ask me while they would discuss bigger events. I really didn't know what was going on most of at tables, but that didn't mean I didn't want to be there. That didn't mean I didn't want to, put my voice out there. I went in there without knowing what I'll say or what I'll do, but that didn't mean I won't give out my 110% of my effort. So to answer your question, yes, I do think my voice was heard, but not the way on how I put my effort in towards it. I feel like it was just a whisper when I was just putting all my effort into it compared to the grand scheme of things.
Thank you. Karen, I want you to answer that question, but I also, if you feel comfortable with sharing, we had talked yesterday, and you had mentioned how you didn't follow the rules and you had some struggles, but you still wanted help. And so in that, do you think your voice was heard and used?
I think that it was heard, but as far as, for example, me, like growing up, I was not the best foster kid. I didn't follow the rules as I should have. My record in school was probably Bible thick, and it wasn't good. I mean, I was constantly running away. I was just upset with life. And the thing was that my caseworker kept telling me, like, you're troubled, like you need to go to therapy, and you're just, it was just always me, and it was always my fault that I did something, and which it is one's fault. But growing up and being a teenager, going from living with your family and seeing them every day to next thing you know, you're not allowed to be in that home, and now you're surrounded by strangers, of course someone is going to be upset. Of course they're going to go through tantrums and they're just going to be mad at the world. But being that troubled teenager and not having someone stable in my life really was hard, up until I actually found a foster mom that I ran away from her because I just didn't know her. And then she went and she picked me up from West Care multiple times after I ran away, and I just was bad at school. I would get suspended and get in fights, and I was just a troubled teenager, which of course everyone goes through stages like that. But I was dealing not only with the stress of school, but the stress of my living situation. And she came to me and she said, I asked her, I said, why do you continuously pick me up? Like, why do you keep coming back for me? And that's when she told me, she said, you're not just a check to me. You are my child. She said, you are someone that I love and that I brought into my home to care for and to love forever. And that's what touched me and changed me. And it taught me a different side of the system. And it taught me that I was worthy of being loved and that I was capable of having that. Even if I wasn't like born into her family, I was still her child. And that's one thing that I feel that many kids need, because a lot of kids are just a check to these people. A lot of kids do go into these homes, and then at the first stroke of misbehaving, they're kicked out and they're sent back to Child Haven, or they're sent back to where they came from, or they're called and told, hey, come pick this kid up because they're not listening to me. And I don't think that's right. I think that if you bring a child into your home, you have to deal with the good and the bad. You have to deal with the tantrums, because regardless, we're all human. And if you're choosing to be a foster parent and you're choosing to take that child into your home, you're choosing to be their parent. You're choosing to accept them for what they are and the luggage that they carry. So I think that my voice was heard. And today I think and I hope that this will make a difference.
Very powerful. Miss Aletta?
Yes, I want you to know, Cameron, that I attended a Texas network for youth services about 2 years ago in Houston, Texas, and the main focus was youth. They presented on every matter that was on that agenda for 3 days, youth-led. But here's what was important. There was not a single adult that did a presentation and did not have a youth sitting next to them to verify what was on their PowerPoint. So you know what we do, right? You're sitting there, or you're not even there. I will present everything about what a foster youth goes through when I've never been one.
Right.
What is wrong with me hearing it directly from Karen? She has a voice. Cameron has a voice, very articulate too. Why do we as adults think that it is our jobs to do PowerPoints on things that we've never experienced? I don't understand that. And so for that reason, our Nevada Youth First has youth ambassadors in it. So while they might not have been at the table to discuss the funding and all of that, they are going to be at the table to discuss the program design. They are going to give us feedback, the messaging, how we put it on Facebook. They're going to have to tell us. I have no idea what young adults prefer today. And yet I would take on a social media role to speak for Cameron and Karen as if they don't know how to speak for themselves. This is a charge to each of us that are in this space of providing services. Let's be behind. Let's lead from behind. Let them tell us what they need as articulately as you shared.
That's right. That's right. Alethea, that is dead on. You are absolutely right. Everything I've ever learned in 40 years came out of the mouth of a youth. But I have to say that we have not respected youth in the development and design of foster care at all. We have brought them in at times when it seemed to be needed, but we have not, I don't think, listened as well as we could, nor have we designed programming that was there to meet their need. If we did, we wouldn't even be calling it independent living because there's no such animal. We know that, let me say this, last April, there was a study done because the pandemic hit, and we knew our kids were going to hit it and be struggling more than anybody else. 55% of those kids that were surveyed had food insecurity. 48% had already been laid off or had their hours reduced. 72% reported that beyond the month that we were in, they didn't know how they were going to live. 72%. So it is incumbent upon us to understand the nuance of survival, because we as adults who may not have been in foster care understand big picture items, but we don't understand the nuances that either open the door or shut the door. And it is an organization and partnerships like this that give me the information. Karen and Cameron, when you guys were talking, I'm writing down what you're saying, that you need to learn how to schedule appointments. We've done some of these things, we've talked about it, but I'm gonna go back to my crew and say, listen, we need to listen to Karen, we need to listen to Cameron, and these are the things that they've said. I have had the opportunity, fortunately, to listen to youth who just come to my office. My best part of my day is my office being, my door's open, it's right by the front door. Whoever comes, come in and talk to me. But this pandemic has put a pause on that. They don't have access. They don't feel as comfortable just emailing Miss Valerie or calling Miss Valerie. So even during the pandemic, as we've had to figure out how to reorient our work, we have done that without their voice. We're doing that thinking about what we think they need. And so I'm committed to including youth voice. I am committed to ensuring that the resources that we know are out in the community come to my kids. And Alethea is right. She is bringing the program to not just my children, but to my whole SAFI family. Because we know that if a foster parent is worried about their job, are they really going to have the mental space to attend to the needs of my children? Maybe not. If their own biological children lost a job and they had to move back home, that's putting some added squeeze on that foster family unit. So I am so happy that Miss Alethea saw not my foster children, but the family, because it's the family that has to thrive. And so she, on March 25th, is going to be bringing her group to us to have a virtual meeting where our foster parents, their biological children, our youth in care, and the biological family members of our youth in care will all be able to listen to this virtual presentation. And they'll be able to hear how they can access services. But I've got to tell you, accessing or knowing a service is out there is one thing. Having somebody at the end of that call who has a heart for the people who are using the service is something else. And so that's why I am so appreciative of the partners I found, because Miss Alethea will call, if we can't meet at 3, we're going to talk at 7 in the morning, because that works. And we can start our day knowing what our agenda, what our assignments are for our youth. So we've got a lot of work to do, but the pandemic has lifted us up and let us know how important this work is. And so in some ways, I know the pandemic has been hard on everybody, but it was hard on these kids before. Now we just all have the light shining on it.
Absolutely. And as you all see, there is importance in having youth there, having youth representation, the importance of reaching out and developing this village role. We say it, but are our words aligning with our actions? And that's the question that we have to ask. Every conference that I go to, that I've been able to speak at, the question is we leave those conferences and we do absolutely nothing. We take this information, but the change that we make is minimal. We bring it back to our desk and we leave it there. So there's a charge here. And the charge and the challenge is for you to actually start to put action in and start to share not only share this, but to actually incorporate youth voice, to incorporate youth, to incorporate and implement programs that would benefit youth, not only in the workforce world, but academically. Not every youth want college. There's trade schools. And so adapting and providing youth up for success, that success is not defined by what society has defined it by. But success for them may be waking up that morning. Success for them is filling out that first application. There's so many things that we have limited success to being. And so when we look at youth, not only in foster care, but youth in general, when we start to broaden our understanding of what success is, I believe strongly that we will have more youth that transition out of the system successfully. When we broaden that, but also provide them and equip them with those skills that are necessary. And this time, I'm going to open it up to our panelists to see if they have any further thoughts. I think that was Miss Aletta that had something.
Right. I wanted to point out we have Dr. Underwood with his hand up, and then next is Nevada Casa. Maybe we can give him an opportunity to share.
Thank you. I did not see those. So
that's okay. We're a team. We're a village.
There was
Dr. Underwood.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you. Oh, let's see if I can get this video to work. Okay, hello. So I am with UNLV School of Medicine and the pediatric residency program. And I just wanted to ask a question in regards to, do you think there are some ways that within the medical community, when these youth are coming to their checkups and things like that, we may be able to hand out some information for them, some resources, or just some sort of information, at least, so that we're trying to help out in a facet or one or another?
I do. I think we can create a list of resources that we could provide so that you can hand that out. And that's kind of what we're in the process of trying to develop, so we don't have you doing this bounce around and guessing. The more folks we get on board, the better. I'll send out, I'll post my email in the chat box, but definitely send out, reach out to us, and we definitely want to get involved with you all.
Can I pose a challenge, a little challenge? We inundate these young adults with a lot of paperwork and flyers and flyers and flyers, and this is what has congested their lives. They get a lot of flyers. I think what would be beautiful is if we can begin to bring the face to these young adults, that we can be there and speak to them so that you can speak behind the flyers. If we can avail someone from that space to directly speak to them, that would be even more helpful than knowing the information is out there, because they can go on the internet and get this stuff, and that has failed. So one of the things that we have really desired to do as a stakeholder team that is in the space is to no longer, I could send my flyers to Miss Valerie and her parents, and I said, no, we need to talk to them and let them know we're here. And so I would put out a charge and challenge to anyone that works with these young adults for us to really bring our faces back into that space, and they can walk away with a flyer, but we want to be able to speak to them directly. Thank you.
I agree. I think with in pediatrics especially, just because of, like you said, they're constantly inundated with a lot of paperwork, we usually try to discuss like anticipatory guidance and different things that children may need in terms of growing up and as they're aging out of our clinics, right? Because they're going to be turning 18, and so we need to find them an adult provider instead of a pediatric provider and those sorts of things. So maybe at those visits at 16 years old and 17 years old, we're able to have that little bit of time to at least discuss some of these resources, so that just like our mothers that come in and, don't realize they can qualify for WIC or SNAP or anything, we usually do try to dedicate some time to those topics so that they're able to have access to those resources. So I agree. I think, a piece of paper is worthless. You have to first make that communication and make that clear and create some understanding first and see where they're at and what they need, because every visit may be a little bit differently. There may be, one child who understands how to get their birth certificate or social security card and another one who's having difficulty with something else. And so having that a little bit of time to discuss their needs at that visit may help mitigate that.
And wouldn't it be great if someone from your office would actually pick up the phone and say, hey, workforce system, this young adult is going to need XYZ, and they can hear you making that connection, and you put the phone down, they feel much better than you giving them a piece of paper and say, oh, you need this here, go here. So just really for us to begin to do things a little differently for this population would be great.
I think that's why it's important for us to come together to create a list of those folks that we could reach out to. And so in me saying about the list, I think that's where it's stemming from, is for us to know who to call or who to refer them to. We don't know because we've all acted in silos. And so being able to come together, and this is a list, you need food services, then call Goodwill and speak to Christina directly. So I think coming together and creating that list, sending it out to the different providers, you know exactly who to contact. The youth, you're giving them the direct number, whether you're calling it with them right then and there, or are giving them the chance to process and then make the call themselves. But knowing exactly where that direct is. And so, again, I encourage you to, as we begin to develop this list, to reach out, and we are going to start to formulate this list. Hopefully we can, we'll put it on our website so that you'll have that. We definitely want to make sure that it's in the hands of everyone, and that you know exactly who to call and who to reach out to for what services they offer. I'm going to give it to Ms. Letta. Did you have anything else?
There's Nevada Casa was on with their hand up.
Ms. Jane Saint.
Hey, thank you for taking my questions and comments. I have a question first for Cameron and Karen. Because I'm with CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates, my question to you is, did you have a CASA when you were in foster care?
I did, but and I have 4 younger brothers, right? In foster care, and my CASA worker didn't help us out in any of the circumstances that I would ask for.
Were you in foster care in Nevada?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm mortified to hear that. Because that's what your CASA is supposed to help you do, is especially as you get older, you know, your CASA is there to help you navigate things and to be there for your best interest. So, and I know that we're at fault because we don't have enough volunteers to be CASAs, and we're working on that, but we need more CASAs to serve kids like you guys, young adults like you. So my next question is, there are groups out there that provide some of these things. What comes to mind first, the Open Table, and they've spoken at past Child Welfare Network meetings where they provide a group of mentors to young adults, homeless folks, and the likes. And then there's Project REAL, which REAL stands for Relevant Education about the Law. They actually have a program that helps kids learn about transitioning from becoming an independent youth. And my question for you then is, how do we get the information to you? I know Dr. Underwood made a comment about, you know, let's talk to the kids when they come in for their visits. How do we get that information disseminated?
I think that a good way to reach out to foster youth is really giving them that one-on-one time, really showing them that you're there to listen. You're not just there to tell them to do something or tell them that they can't do something. Just sit there and explain to them, like, hey, I'm here to explain this today. But also, like, don't overload with information. You know what I mean? Like, if it's one point that you're trying to make, then just explain it in detail. Because the thing that I went through was, and this is like a personal experience, is that anytime that one of my workers would try to tell me something, whether it was, here's how you get a bus pass, or here's a flyer of whatever is going on this week in foster care, they would overwhelm me with information to the point where I was just like, I have homework on top of all of this. I'm really not interested in it. And that's just something that really affected me in participating in things like this, because it was just so overwhelming. And if you really want to know something about your foster child, don't, how can I say this right? Don't do it in a community setting, because a lot of things are personal. A lot of kids aren't as comfortable as sharing as I am. And they're shy and they're embarrassed of the things that they went through. And I don't think that that's a way to reach out to a child, is by doing it in a public setting.
Yeah, well, and I totally agree with you on that. So it sounds that you need a mentor. You need somebody who's just yours. I mean, we have big brothers, big sisters, and they tend to deal more with younger kids. It's always been hard to place the older kids. But Cameron, when you were saying that you spend how much time on a bus, going to school, going to work, you're getting less than 4 hours of sleep a night. that's just totally unacceptable. And there are people in this community that would step up. Heck, I'd come picking you up and taking you to school and taking you to work or teaching you to drive. And, you know, that's, yeah, oh, sorry, that's totally unacceptable and will not be tolerated. So we need to make change as community leaders and advocates for children. We need to make that change.
One thing that I spoke with Deshaun about in regards to the whole driver's license and thing, because I went through the same topic. I tried to get my license and I couldn't. So once again, I had to go back to my family members to teach me how to do that. One thing that I think could be essential, and that way foster parents aren't really held with that responsibility because they have so many responsibilities as it is. I think that it would be essential for the state to partner with like a driving school that's licensed and insured that can help us get those licenses when we become of age. I mean, of course, as far as doing what we need to do and school and handling our responsibilities and showing that we're actually capable of handling the responsibility of driving, because that is essentially, you know, life-threatening, being able to be behind a wheel, and not only to ourselves, but to the community. So I think
it's life-threatening when you're on the roads in Nevada, yes.
Exactly. But I think that it would be good if we could possibly partner with like a driving school or just someone who can teach us and be dedicated to us and have time for us.
So Karen, what you've just done is a program design, right? To what we're talking about here. We design things without you, and we fumble because we don't know exactly when to insert that particular program. And so Nevada CASA, so one of the things that I would like for us to challenge each other on is when it comes to not having enough staff to do the work, maybe we should have a workforce discussion in that space and say, we need workers to do this work to serve our young adults. Do we have somewhere in the workforce bucket individuals that can come and assist us? Because we really want to remove every barrier possible that runs into what we've just experienced right now. Cameron didn't have enough staff to support his unification with his siblings. And the reason is because we don't have enough staff. So is that something that we can discuss and figure out how to remove that barrier so that we are staffing up to the levels of needs for these very important services that we provide to our young adults? Just something to throw your way as, you know, as we begin to to come up with solutions to do this important work. Because the money, the resources are there. How do we repurpose them so that they go where they are needed, rather than having them sit here and say, come and get them, but you don't have anyone to send to come and get the resources?
Mm-hmm.
Redeployment.
And this needs to be an effort across the state, not north, south. And I'm sure that it's probably the issues are magnified in the rural areas. Talk about trying to get around, you know. In Lyon County, it's an hour from Dayton to Urington, and it's an hour each way. So it's got to be amplified in those areas.
Absolutely. And those are the issues and the things that we definitely want to address and bring out. I'm going to open it up. If there's anything, any other questions that you all might have, I'm going to open it up at this time.
I don't have a question. Can you hear me? Maybe not.
Yes.
Okay. It's just an appeal to the community, right? We need more foster parents who are willing to take our teenagers and really willing to help them transition successfully to the next step. It's amazing how many times we will do presentations in the community, and people want little children. They want school-age children, and they like all children, but they don't want teenagers. And I'm like, what? They're great. They're the best. Are you serious? But they're afraid. And so we need to, as adults in this community, speak better about the youth in care so that people will understand that our youth in care are deserving of all that we have to give them, and that they can be successful with the right tools and the right supports in place. You can't just skip over the teen years and get to the magic adult years. It doesn't happen. And if you do try to do that, it won't end well for the children that are transitioning into adulthood.
You bring up a very good point, and that brings me to a question that I have for everyone, guests included. How many of you in your teenage years did not get into any trouble? Raise your hand.
I would say raise my hand, but lightning might strike.
And Deshaun, you heard me. I'm sorry. This is Life Coach Bridget here. And you heard me speak earlier. You guys, I'm a life coach as well as a mentor, peer wellness specialist, a mother of 8, a mom to many. And I also adopted my grandson who was in the foster system. Okay, I took him on. And that was my point earlier. We have so many of us who will sit on this panel and will say, yeah, you know, the kids need this, and yeah, they need that. And you know, yeah, by God, we need to do this. Okay, and then you leave off the screen, bam, and we forget about the kids, or we forget about what we discussed when we was here. Okay, and our youth, they don't forget because they're living it. Okay, Karen, I was a project manager, an engineer analyst, a life coach, and all that cool stuff. But check it out. As a teenager, I was a member of the biggest Crip gang. I sold more dope than a little bit. I dropped out of high school. Okay, I'm telling you, that was my life. Okay, I was molested when I was 4 years old by my uncle, told somebody in the family, nobody helped me. Okay, and so I felt like I had to do my own thing. As a youth, I was promiscuous. Oh, my bad, not promiscuous. The teens don't use that word. She was a hoe. Okay, so that's what I was as a teenager growing up. Okay, and here's the thing, Cameron and Karen, you guys come across these people, our young people come across these people with these degrees, come across these people with these titles, and you already feel like I don't measure up. Okay, why? Because I had a small incident, and I'm using this term to say this. I had a small incident where I was in the foster system, so I could never be an executive this, or, you know, I could never be a commissioner that, you know, because of what I went through. I tell people all the time, your current situation does not dictate your final destination, period. It just doesn't. Okay, it just does not. All right, and until we have people who will be this way on the screen and the same way when the cameras shut off, Cameron and Karen are going to always feel what they feel, because we don't have anyone. This is not to knock what the doctor said. I don't see her on here right now. Oh, Dr. Underwood. This is not to knock what she said when she was talking about giving out the pamphlets. That's a beautiful thing. But I'm with Miss Aletha. Okay, we need some interaction. We need to meet you all where you're at. Okay, pamphlets is things they was doing in my time. Okay, you get the pamphlets after we're done talking. Okay, and if you go to that table and you want to pick that pamphlet up, fine. But right now, because we have a village that's broken and shattered into pieces, we have to bring this village back together. Okay, and we can't do it with the covering up of things, turning a blind eye to things, only working with those that we choose to work with. I think I heard someone say, as far as a resource, giving out a name, or giving out, you know, a business or something, and then giving their name, giving a contact person for you to reach out to. You can give that person, Call Bridget, you know, over at Bridget Homies, call her and she'll do, okay. And then when you call me, I'm picking up my phone. Okay, well, I can't talk right now. Okay, then why did Deshaun tell me to call you? Why did he tell me to call? I'm hungry or I'm houseless right now. Okay, and you were the person I was told to reach out to, and you treat me nastier than the people on the streets. And I always feel like we need to start working with those at the top. Work with those at the top so it has a ripple effect when it comes down. All right, when we're talking about my youth, that's my passion. 12 to 24, that's my passion. Okay, because you guys are transitioning in life. There are so many hiccups. You begin to learn what I said earlier, that toilet paper ain't free. You don't know how to fill out a resume or how to complete a resume. They're telling you stuff like, you know, interview questions are, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? That is no longer the interview questions. It is now, how do you handle stress? Okay, what will you do in a situation as such? Critical thinking. That's what my organization, I just relocated here from Oregon, and that's what my organization does. Okay, we teach you or help you with mock interviews. Okay, we show you how to create resumes that will get the attention. Okay, and when I say mock interviews, I pulled some of my guys from the construction site. I pulled owners of companies. I pulled people from all walks of life, okay, to sit down and do interviews with these young people. Even if you don't want the job, let's just practice, okay? So you'll feel comfortable when you meet this person that's called commissioner this or executive this. Let me tell you something, Cameron and Karen, if you learn nothing else today, I want you to know that no matter who you go in front of, they put their pants on one leg at a time, just like you do. They are no different from you, okay? And just because you don't articulate the way that they deem you should articulate things doesn't make you any less than they are, okay? And your voice should be heard no matter how you speak, period. Okay, you should be heard. You have a right to be heard. All right. And anything you want to know, anything you want to learn, I tell people all the time, we have these phones. Okay, this is a miniature computer. Look up the information, look up whatever it is you need. And if you can't find it there, then everybody here do a screenshot of this panel right here, because you should be able to reach out to everybody on this panel and no one should turn their back on you, because these are the same voices that said you have a voice and you have a right to be heard. These are the same ones. And I tell people all the time, pull a person's card. I don't use that word, but pull a person's card, check them. See if what they're saying is real, because you know what? You come from a monkey see, monkey do world. You guys mimic what you see us doing. That's what you do. And if we're not living accordingly, or if we're not demonstrating how to be productive citizens in this society, or we're not talking the way that we expect you to talk, you're not going to get it. You're just not. Period. Okay? Taking a bus ride and only getting 4 hours of sleep, that's what the legislators need to hear. Okay? You need some more buses out there. You need some more people out there. But instead, what you're going to hear is, here's what we pose, but the pandemic bumped that excuse. We had flu shots, okay, or we had the flu going on out there. We still got all these other diseases going on out there. We got something else that's going to take place after the coronavirus, okay? And we're still making do. It didn't stop NBA All-Star Weekend, okay? So let's keep pushing. Let's keep pushing. So don't stop whatever it is you're doing. Like I said, it takes a whole village to raise a child. Victorious individuals lending love abundantly to generations evolving. That's you, that's me, that's us as a whole. Cameron and Karen, I'll close it up here. To those of us who have been in the woods and we've come out, we can tell you, Cameron and Karen, what to expect if you go in the woods. We don't want you being led by those that's standing outside the woods, walking back and forth, talking about, if you go up in there, girl, I heard, or, man, I heard that this, you've never been in there. You've never been in there. I'm 51, not 15. I could tell you what's happened up in there. So this way, when you go up in there, you know what to expect. You know what to look for. And you have all the proper tools that you need in order for you to survive. Okay? So I personally would like to hold everyone on this panel accountable. And I would like for them to be just as transparent as they are here, be that way out there. If one of these young people call you up, answer your phone. Okay? I have a problem with foster parents who want to be foster parents simply for the check and not the child. I have a problem with that. But I hold the state responsible for that, because I say, you know what, that's your job. You went in and you did a thorough background check on me. Okay, so why can't you do one on them other parents? Okay, why can't you do one on them? All right, and life happens. That foster parent knew that there was a possibility that your child would be coming back home. Okay, you know that. That's life. All right, but you still have this other child here that doesn't have the benefits like that. And you took that child in, so you're supposed to love on that baby just like you would your own.
That's right.
I did.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Again, you guys are my passion, so I get real heated, okay, real assertive. So when it comes to that, because I need you guys, I want you guys to survive, but I also need for us to be able to give to you all what you need in order for you to be able to survive. And I'll just shut down there.
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Bridget. We have just a few more minutes before this session ends. Are there any other thoughts or comments before we transition out?
In fact, someone put out in the chat, if you would share everyone's information that was on this panel.
Yes,
so
I'll work with, I will work with Amanda on seeing how we can do that. I did see that.
Yeah, and Miss Jennifer said we need to clone Coach Bridget.
Yeah, we do. That's what I did.
So Amanda's giving me the thumbs up, so it looks like we would be able to get that information out. Are there any other thoughts?
Thank you guys for everything. That's it.
So, Deshaun, I have a thought, I have a question, a challenge.
Yes.
Because Ms. Bridget is right. We're sitting here, we're passionate during this presentation, and then, at the end, we're all going to click and go off to our own lives. What can we do? What's our next step? And can an organization such as the Child Welfare Network, since we are now both North and South, can they take on a project like this? Even if it's, a group of us coming together and seeing what can be done, but, what can we do as the village?
You actually got ahead of me. Absolutely.
Good.
That was my next thing, actually, was to, the first being is to invite those of you that are not participating in the Child Welfare Network to get involved in that. What it is we meet quarterly twice, once in the North, once in the South, and it is when all of the child welfare providers, community, youth, adults, anyone within the scope of child welfare, not only dealing with foster youth, but juvenile justice youth, addressing a variety of different issues. We have some folks from different hospitals that join, and we talk about how we can change, not only talk about, but we actually see how we can implement in the different areas. This is statewide, rural areas included. What I would like to do is get that information out to you. Our next meeting will be on the 29th, of June, of April, the 29th of April. It's our combined, it'll be combined, so the North and the South will actually be meeting at that time. If you want more information about that, send me your email and I will add you to the listserv. Just email it to me. And that way I'll be able to add you and you can get that information. But that is a great thing. CAA and Dr. Tiffany is not on any longer. But yes, I think we have the capacity and the ability to do that. And I think that would be a great thing. And that's kind of what we've began to do already with this transition initiative, but to even expand that a lot more. It really takes all of us and to really hold each other accountable. And in doing so, these meetings are one way to establish that, but it definitely goes beyond these meetings, and definitely goes beyond our 9 to 5. So if you did not sign up, so Amanda's saying if you did not sign up to participate through the online survey or register via Eventbrite, please make sure she has your email address to follow up with information. So I'll be getting Amanda the information as far as the Child Welfare Network meetings. For those of you that want to participate, it's a great opportunity. Ms. Jane Saint attends every meeting, both the North and the South. There might be a few others that are on here that attend as well. So absolutely. Are there any other thoughts? This is powerful. I definitely would love to see movement moving forward. And the charge really is to include youth, do what you say you're gonna do. Let's keep it, let's build this up and make the changes that we need to. If there's nothing else, I see some emails popping in. Amanda, you
I just
popped
have a
on, so I'm
comment from
assuming
Ms.
you may have
Griffin.
something.